We talked before starting about what are some metrics and things you can do to track. So we, before my current company, I was at a company where we were a $200 million a year manufacturer. We had 5 facilities across the US. And one of our big initiatives was tracking rework. And so it was a big initiative just to implement systems to track the costs of rework. And rework was labor that we spent that was non-value add, basically fixing mistakes, or costs of materials bought or things of redoing work that if we had done it right the first time, we wouldn't have spent that money. And just tracking that gave us data to say what you were alluding to earlier, Martin, was how much money are we spending on quality? And that is a direct cost that if we fix it, goes straight to the bottom line. So that's one way to think of it. You're saving yourself money. There's a lot of opportunity cost tied to that, but just black and white, we're spending money up here that if we didn't would be profit down here. But tracking that allowed us to see things like, okay, one, how much are we spending on an annual basis? How big of a problem is this to justify how much we spend? Because you asked me, how do companies define when is it worth having a dedicated person? Well, on $200 million a year, if we're spending half of, $100,000, $500,000, whatever it is on rework, we know that we can spend $100,000 on a full-time quality control person, and it's going to be worthwhile to spend that. And it also, you're going to have data like, hey, is it in this area of the business where we're spending? Are we spending more on labor, or are we spending more on materials? Well, we're able to quantify and say, hey, this much of our rework is materials. Well, why are we having to buy materials again? Is it because we're cutting parts wrong, or is it because somebody's ordering the wrong thing? There, you're able to drill into where you actually need a checklist. Where do you need to either repair a process or focus those efforts?
To apply this to contractors a little bit, I mean, it's the same thing. I'm just sitting here thinking through a contractor, the kinds of things when you send a crew out to the job, do they have the tools? Do they have the gas for the generator? Do they have the right address? Is the job site really ready? Do they have the materials? And we don't, on our checklist, have to list all the materials, but we have to go through a checklist that people think about. The crew getting ready, they all have to agree, yeah, we got everything. Or no, the gas can's empty, right? So it saves you driving 20 miles to a job and find out, yeah, I know they said it was ready, but it's not.
Yep.
And so you lost a whole day, plus the literal cost of paying those guys.
Yeah. I spent about 9 months as an interim general manager of one of our manufacturing facilities. And one of our biggest problems was incomplete shipments. And so that was costing us money in the field because we would have multiple mobilizations of installers. So we would have to send guys to the field to install half of a room, and then they have to come back a week later for the other half of the room. But the metric was, hey, we shipped an incomplete shipment. And so that's due to literally, we would have a checklist that was, hey, this truck is supposed to go to the field with these items, and we only checked off half of them. That there is a quality control checklist of like, okay, if one of our costs of quality, so that's another metric you can create is cost of quality, COQ for short. And you can define in your business, what are your costs of quality? And if you just track events that cost quality, you can define those, but it could be like incomplete shipments could be an event for cost of quality. And you just literally start tracking. It could be an Excel sheet. It could be in your system of record, your ERP, whatever. But hey, on this date, we shipped this truck incomplete. That's an event that you can then, if you track that, go back to say, okay, how many events did we have this month? What were they? Incomplete shipments. We had 10 of those this month. Okay, why is that a problem? How do we fix that?
And how much did that cost us?
Right.
Yeah. Put a number on it.
So, but as you were saying, the checklist doesn't have to be custom to everything. Like, what are the materials for this job? It's just, did I check that I have the right materials? Did I check that the truck was full? Did I check, it's just basic one-liners. and somebody is writing or checking off, I did this, I confirmed this, I verified that I put the screws on the truck, I verified that I put the drawings that the field guy is going to need on the truck. There's all those kind of things that are tribal knowledge in your business. A lot of times those are the things that you don't realize need to be done or that need to be checked until that person, the only person that does it, misses a day of work. And so that's where getting out and talking to your people and saying, well, hey, what are some recent mistakes or pain points or things that are a problem? And you'll start to get your people opening up and saying, oh, well, last week Joe was out and we didn't get this to the field. Oh, is Joe the one that normally does that? Okay, so that should be on a checklist that somebody is verifying.
Jeff Finney, whom we all know and our listeners know too, if they've been listening at all, he has, I don't know if it's once a month, once a quarter, but I think he has 40, 49 guys, something like that. He lines them up in the shop from beginning to end, loader, CNC operator, and they look to the guy downstream from them and say, you are my customer, which alludes to what you said earlier. What can I do to serve you better?
Mm-hmm.
So we were talking about putting the onus on the guy downstream to catch the guy upstream, but this is a positive way of doing the same thing and identifying those. And when you find them, they're like money in the bank.
Yeah. He also does, I think something that we need to talk about is just the value of talking to your employees and just getting information from them. It's essentially what you just said, Martin, and you've already alluded to a little bit, Jacob, but just making it really concrete that like there's real value in gaining insights from your employees. And if you're not asking them what's wrong, if you're not asking them, how can we get better? How can we improve? Your checklist won't be complete and you will always have quality control issues. But the people that are there every single day, that are working on the job, that are doing the tasks, are thinking about, man, I wish this was better. That's going through their mind. Just like you have that thought as a business owner, your employees have the same thing, and you can even promote a culture of that. And I think one thing that Jeff Finney does, Martin, you may have to help me here, but he's got a bucket or where you can submit a piece of paper. What is it called?
Yeah.
Do you remember, Martin?
Genie.
Yes. Yeah. Why don't you tell? You probably know it better than me.
Well, he just has I hate to even a suggestion box, right? We've all heard of that. And people suggest that you go to hell, right? Things like that. But his people, they win $100 they get to get this Genie thing on their station. And he's, through attrition and hiring and so on, he's got a crew of people who believe, as he does, that, hey, this is really cool. We're getting better, better, better. And they want that Genie up there. And some of them can be kind of small. I can't think of any of his specific examples.
I remember one was just as simple as like, hey, we need a broom in this area because we're having to walk all the way across the shop to get this broom, and the broom sucks. It's not a good broom. Like, we need a better broom that's wide, really wide, that you can sweep it up in this area in just like 2 minutes rather than spending 10 minutes walking over there. It's a tiny broom that hasn't, it's 10 years old. Things like that, I think, are just a simple way of improving something in terms of a process. I don't know if that's necessarily QC, but it's actually a culture of just let's think about how we can do this better.